season here. I call it the season. It's not really a season. Mild COVID statistics here in the Phoenix area. And otherwise, no complaints. I hope everyone else is holding up okay.
Any particular medical guidance you have for us?
I think we just got to keep doing what we're doing. You know, the whole thing about getting tested and being tested, that is definitely moving quickly. There's really no reason or even the ability to get testing unless you have had some symptoms. And there are some people, I can assure you, in this room likely who will test COVID positive and may not even realize they've had it. There's a sizable number of subclinical cases where people will test positive in spite of being relatively asymptomatic. So just keep doing what you're doing, and God willing, this will pass in the next couple of weeks.
That's good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I've lost my my Zoom here because I was looking for a document. So let me see.
We can see you.
You can see me. That's good. I'll close that up and.
Hi.
We need to switch right land.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm.
Jane, tell us again.
No, Frank's not on. And Sandy's on.
Yet.
Hi, Rabbi Koppell.
Hello. So apparently you all can see me, but I can't see you because I touched the wrong thing.
Rabbi Koppell, can I just ask you to do us all a favor? Frank is, Blake's have been calling and texting me. They can't find the ID and I can't seem to locate it on my phone.
I'll send it to him.
We'll send it to him right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So,
I know why Diane and Frank aren't on.
so Craig, I know you're there. Can you tell me what I can do to find this lost?
Did you minimize?
Did you just lose the window?
Yes.
So if you hold down the Windows button and the tab button, the control button and the tab button, that'll bring up a little scroll of icons. And you should be able to scroll through until you get to the Zoom icon.
Control tab.
On your keyboard.
Alt tab.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alt tab on your keyboard.
Yeah, that unfortunately didn't work for me. All right, I'm gonna
The other thing you can do is start minimizing windows. Go up and do the minimize.
I don't have any windows open. So
Why don't you log out and log in again?
that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So talk among yourselves. Oh, great, there you are. There you all are. Wonderful. Oh, and I see Marilyn and a bunch of people joined us. Good. So once again, we're going to give everybody the opportunity to do a real quick update. Let us know how you're doing. I'm going to go around my screen. So starting with Leanna.
We're doing great out here. We're continuing to just stay away from people, and we're so close to the Santan Regional Park, which is 10,000 acres of hiking. So we pretty much go out there every day, and it's just, the weather's fantastic. So we go out, burn off some energy, and then come home and mind our own business.
Good.
Yeah, so I'm not working, and hopefully maybe go back next week.
How so? You're going to work remotely, or what do you
Yeah,
think?
I've been working from home.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're great. John and I are doing great. That's what I was going to do.
Good. So Ellen,
Yes.
what's going on?
Oh, last week I walked 30 miles.
Wow.
That's pretty good. And I've been meeting friends and social distancing, one friend and walking. And we have a discovery trail up here, which is wonderful, and all kinds of other places to walk with seeing wildflowers. And I'm doing ceramics because my husband made sure I had a studio at home. So I do. So I can throw on the wheel and make things, and that's giving my heart a nice release. So I'm doing fine. Thank
Good.
you.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you, sweetie.
And Carol and Joe hosted a very successful Zoom nosh, a virtual nosh on Friday, and there's going to be an encore this week, so I'm sure he'll share that link with anyone who would like to join us.
Okay. Carol, go ahead.
Things are doing well. We are, of course, quarantined. We are in quarantine just like everybody else. Thank God the weather's been beautiful so we could enjoy our yard. As a matter of fact, we're sitting in the yard right now talking to all of you. Things are quiet. Thank God everybody's healthy, including my mom, who's 99 today. Tomorrow, excuse me. Tomorrow's her 99th. And she is as frisky as ever. She's doing very well. The rest of my family is healthy, thank God. We just keep day by day.
Go to safari, go to farming.
Good. Well, happy birthday to her from all of us.
Yeah, and I've been also doing some walking in the neighborhood. We live across the street from the McDowell Mountain Preserve, about 40 square miles of preserved land. But right here in our neighborhood, we have about 9 miles of hiking trails. So I've been out almost daily doing that. And then on Monday, Harv Weisblatt, Mark Gottlieb, and some guy named Kushner were out playing golf with us, and so we've been able to do that. And actually, we were on the 16th green when Rabbi Mari called to check in on me. So I let her talk to everybody who was socially properly distanced and yelling at her from there. So
How did Kushner play?
Oh, he did fine. He did well. He's going to play with us again this week. So
yeah, he's going out this afternoon as well.
Okay, good.
He's got to practice for today.
Yeah, that's right.
That's about it for us.
Good. Eileen?
Oh, okay. We're doing fine. We're hanging in there. We go for walks 3 times a day, and in between we try to keep a schedule. At least I try to keep a schedule. We're still on baby watch. The baby was due yesterday, so they're still pregnant, so we're waiting for that. And then during all this mess, my husband's uncle died on Sunday in Massachusetts. So he was 95, soon to be 96. So we did a Zoom funeral.
Wow.
So there were 2 rabbis there, his cousin and her husband and 2 other couples, and they kind of spread apart. And it went well. It was very interesting, very sad, but it was nice that we all could see each other on the screen and talk. But it was just very different, very different. Wow. So, but anyways, we're doing fine.
Good. Well, give your husband our condolences.
Thank you.
And Joel, I know you were saying that the schedule was working well for you also. You still on a schedule?
Yeah, it's great. Debbie, excuse me, did you reach Frank?
Yep, he's on now.
Frank's on, but we don't have a picture.
We don't have any.
Okay.
We don't have any video on Frank yet.
Yeah,
just up there.
I had my knee replaced, and then I broke my tibia 3 weeks after, and so being at home since really my surgery was February 12th. So, you know, I've been home a lot. I was on crutches for a while. I am doing phenomenally well. I'm back to behind me. I have 3 different, in a home gym, 3 different exercise pieces, and I am getting everything back. I'm doing a lot of working out with tubes and bands, and feel like I'm getting back into shape for the first time in about 4 or 5 months. So that's been wonderful, and Cheryl and I are maintaining bearable distance from each other. Oh no, I guess that's not necessary. But no, everything here is great. She's now used to having me around this much, and it took some adjustment, but we're doing great. I saw something this morning that actually caught my eye, which was, I thought, cute. 2020 is a unique leap year. It has 29 days in February, 300 days in March, and 5 years in April.
That's cute.
Very cute.
I like that. Debbie, so nice to have you joining us. Are you able to do any work at all these days, or what's going on?
Well, most of my work, yes, most of my work is, you know, I'm working just based off of my computer. And unfortunately, my two largest projects have been just unraveling events. So there's the what if game that a lot of people play. That is hard to get caught up in that, and because it's, you know, all those things that are beyond our control. And so it's like working on some of the things that have been sitting around where I don't really feel a sense of urgency because I don't have a client that's holding me accountable. So that's a little bit different. But the time at home, you may have seen my daughter just walked in and she was making berry beverages of some sort. I don't know. So she's it's so nice to have Amy around and spending time with her. We are fortunate to be able to enjoy our yard and our views. And like Joe, we play a fair amount of golf. In fact, I think we saw Ron and Lori last week over at Papago. Lynn was with them and Seymour Rife. So Jack and I will play a fair amount together. We played some birthday golf on Monday for Marilyn Smith, who some of you know is very important in my life. It's a year that she passed, and she would have been 91 on Monday. And so that's occupied a lot of my thoughts and my time in moving her entity forward. But just it's an interesting time for. I'm excited that my beets sprouted in the garden this morning. Let's see. A lot of cooking, a lot of walking, and just you know, we worry a lot about Jack's business because there's nothing going on, and but you know, again, there's only so much that we can control.
Well, give him our love too.
I will.
We
Thank
saw Lori, Ron, and Lynn yesterday. Ron and I went mountain biking with Ron Fischler, and the ladies hiked while we rode. So that was beautiful. We were up at Brown's Ranch.
Nice. Well, our desert is just amazingly beautiful right now. We're very, very fortunate because other parts of the country don't have it the same. So we're fortunate.
Yeah, we'll hear from my mom in a few minutes from New York, and it's a day-by-day thing there. You know, one day is beautiful and one day is miserable. Craig, how are you?
I'm hanging in there. I had a nice Seder, and then on Saturday, I watched this thing called Seder at Home with a bunch of Broadway singers and stuff.
Yes.
So it was beautiful. And so I've just been a busy bee working on stuff around the house and studying, and my exercise schedule is not as good. I'm jealous of everybody. My schedule is, I'm not making it out to hike enough, and so I'm trying to work on that and get better at that and stuff, but I'm doing good, and I just want to get out and see people. I'm just like, I miss people.
So go back and reread the chapter in your Midah book on order, and maybe you can, you know, bring some order to the schedule.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Lori, how are you?
Doing good. Been walking in my neighborhood. Yesterday, my one neighbor had her daughter over, and she has a front porch, which doesn't exist many of the houses here. And the two of them were chatting, and they invited me to chat. We sat 6 feet apart. That was really nice. And then the rest of my walk, I found these two couples that to me were not sitting the 6 feet apart, but that's what they were doing. So I had a nice chat with them and have been doing my body pump workout, which is what I used to do at the J, but I've been doing it with YouTube. So that's been good. And had a Zoom call with some girlfriends, Robin Rubenstein, you guys know maybe, and two other former Temple members, Julie Weinstein and Ricky Horowitz. And in touch with Benjamin, who's doing good. And yeah, that's it.
Excellent. All right, and there's my mom with the family behind her. How are you today?
Okay, yesterday I hit the jackpot. I was able to figure out how to get food delivered, which was amazing. It made me so happy the whole day. And I took a nice walk with my mask. And now I hear everyone in New York is supposed to walk with a mask if they're outdoors. So I hope they do. It would make me feel better. And I can find streets that aren't crowded to walk on, and I go out for exercise. That's it. But now I have food coming, so I'm a happy camper.
When does the food get delivered?
Monday.
Yeah.
All right, something to look forward to.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Like if you're sitting outside with neighbors like I was yesterday, should we all have our faces covered?
According to the CDC, if we go out, we're supposed to wear masks. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you I'm sorry, I hope I'm not interrupting.
No, that's fine. Jane and Richard, hi, nice to see you.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi.
Hi.
Doing well. We've been doing a lot of cooking, made a delicious pot of soup for Passover. Balls and cleaning, and I finally went out and started walking. And I'm not afraid of the coyotes.
Yeah, my matzo ball soup was so successful at Passover that I made another pot of it just a day or two ago.
Yeah, you get hooked on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I don't think I'm going to make meals anymore. That the soup, everybody had 2 and 3 bowls of the soup.
And then you're filled up. Yeah.
We're doing some dog training.
We're doing some dog training.
Well, that's a productive use of your time.
It is. Have to have patience, though, and a sense of humor.
And Marilyn, how are you?
I'm doing fine. A lot of cooking and walking. And then every evening after dinner, we have a theater room. We go in there, we watch shows, movies. We saw the 1955 World Series between the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Yankees. It was highlights, and we knew that Brooklyn was going to win. I remember it as a child. People were going crazy in Brooklyn. The Bums won. They're opening their windows. It was amazing. And so finally they won against the Yankees, who were their nemesis for years. And we speak with friends and people across the country, and we're going to have a happy hour with a couple in Massachusetts and a couple in New York. So I'm looking forward to that. And things are going well.
Excellent. Good.
Marilyn, can I ask you, how did you get that game? Was it through YouTube?
It was on MLB, which on my Cox TV is 305. And we also watched a movie about Jackie Robinson in which he played Jackie Robinson. Amazing.
Wow.
Yesterday was actually Jackie Robinson Day. If baseball would have been on, every would be wearing number 42 on their back, every player. So it was an amazing time. Joel said to me, "Are you proud that we were in Brooklyn at that time and that the Dodgers brought up a black man and that sort of opened the gates for other teams to do the same thing?" And I told him, yeah, it was a wonderful place to grow up, but this made it even more special. I used to have the newspaper from that for years, from 1955. My father was a big Dodger fan. So, yeah, it reminded me of my dad, and I was happy to watch that. It was terrific.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy, how are you?
Okay, I joined a little late because I clicked on the wrong link. I was on last week's thing and I couldn't understand why my mouth wasn't moving until you called me. I was saying stuff from last week and I said, wait a minute, something's wrong here. But anyway, it's nice to see everybody. We're doing okay, navigating this strange world of doing things. I brought my car in this morning for a recall, as they said it was going to blow up if I left it in the garage, and I had to get it there. So I had a mask, and I opened the window, and to me, no space, nothing. And so it's just different. I felt like here I am with the mask, and everybody's walking around there like life is normal, and it wasn't. By Safeway, it was tons of cars there, lots of traffic on the road. So, I know we're all doing, this social distancing, but I don't know what's going on out there. We've been good. We've also figured out how to get food delivered, and that worked out real well. And we've gotten some work done on our pool, and we've just, David wants me to mention he finished a sculpture. And so, yeah, life is going on. We're getting little things done and going for walks, sneakers, exercises at home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it.
Excellent. Yeah. Sherry, how are you? Oh, you need to unmute.
I'm doing well. Kind of like everybody else, a lot of hiking and biking. I love Scottsdale with their bike routes where you can bike wherever and never cross the street.
Uh-huh.
So
where do you like to go? Where do you start?
Just up Hayden. I usually start about Roosevelt. And just, it's 7 miles the way that I go. So it's 14 round trip. I'd like to head over more into Phoenix. It looks like they have some good routes also. And then I go over South Mountain quite a bit because it's not very far from my house. And I've never had that before. So, somebody mentioned coyotes. I had a coyote probably within about 40 feet of me yesterday. You
have a lot of coyotes there in Manhattan when you walk?
Coyotes and javelinas.
Disguised as people.
Well, that was an adventure. We've seen we've seen a couple of rattlesnakes this spring on the trails.
Yeah, those I've had experience with, and sometimes they're way too close. But anyway, so I'm used to a heavier workout than either of those. So I bought a treadmill or an elliptical with the arms. And that was challenging because I'm living alone right now, getting that into the house and put together. And last night I finally got on. It was a great workout, so I'm really glad I have it.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, we're very proud of you for managing that. Give yourself a pat on the back. Mr. Blake, it looks like you're in the car.
Yes, quick update. Diane is in the chemo room right now receiving chemo. This is her every 3 weeks process. So she went in at 9 o'clock and I wait outside because obviously no other participant can go inside the area at this point in time. So I wait out here, read my books, doing Finishing Strong book, and finding that very enlightening. So Diane's doing fairly well, been having various bouts of different issues. Yesterday we went and got a cortisone shot for her shoulder. She was having excruciating pain. And thank God we were able to get in and she got a cortisone shot. It's a little bit sore at this point in time, but she's doing fairly well. Yeah, because she wasn't eating, she just, couldn't deal with the pain that she was going through. So she started to feel a little bit better today, yesterday and this morning, and hopefully she'll come out of this a little bit okay. Next 3 days, she's on prednisone, and then she'll be wired like you wouldn't believe. Then she'll crash. So we had a good Passover, nice meals, doing some duoing with different people. Got my brother into duoing. He thought this was the greatest thing in the world. He didn't realize this. He said, "Oh, I got a new toy to speak and see all my grandkids and my children." So he was all excited. We've been very fortunate. Friends, temple members have been dropping off food as they go shopping. So it basically, I'm not out doing anything other than going to doctor's office like we're doing today. So doing a little bit of painting, haven't got back to my guitar playing, hopefully doing that soon. Taking bike rides every afternoon for 35, 40 minutes through the neighborhood. So that's getting me a little bit of exercise other than walking my dog in the morning and evening. I show him pictures of Joel Sherman. He gets very excited when pictures of Joel Sherman. Joel is one of his favorite individuals.
You haven't lived until you've been bitten by Bosco.
He loves Joe.
By the way, for people who do not know what Frank is talking about, Duo is a program that you can use on any device. It's similar to FaceTime for all you Apple users, but you can still download Duo and communicate with people who have Android phones or any other device. So
is that DUO?
DUO, yes. You can get it out of the Apple App Store.
Can you repeat that again?
It's called Duo, D-U-O. You can get it in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. It's free. It's a Google product, and it works like FaceTime. So if you have a friend or a relative who does not have an Apple device, you can use that to communicate with them or anybody, frankly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good, great tip.
Thank you.
Got to mention a terrific series that we found on Netflix. No, it was on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
It's called Mozart in the Jungle.
It's called what? Would you repeat that?
Called
please?
what? Mozart in the Jungle.
Mozart in the Jungle.
Jungle.
It's about a bunch of musicians in the New York Symphony Orchestra being very outlandish.
And beautiful music and
Terrifically funny.
very funny.
Nice.
A great insight into what goes on to put together a symphony.
Oh, that's
But it's
wonderful.
fun,
Thanks for the tip.
And it's free.
The name of it again is?
Mozart in the Jungle. I've watched it 100 times. I'm from New York, so I can't. It takes years in the city.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I don't know if you know, my husband, Ron, was a professional musician and played in a lot of orchestras and a huge classical music fan. So I bet he'll love it.
I played bassoon.
Good. So I wanted to turn to our book. We're just getting good at getting older here. And we were talking, actually, the very first chapter focuses in on Musar. So for those who are not familiar with Musar, it's something that's very important in my world. I do a lot of Musar teaching at Temple High, and there are Sharon Silverman also teaches Musar. So Musar has to do with developing our character traits, or what we call soul traits. And actually, Sandy and Craig are both in my Sunday morning Musar class. We're finishing up a course called Season of Musar. So they should be, if you look on page 8, there are 13 of these attributes that the book references: gratitude, forgiveness, humility, generosity, enthusiasm, compassion, order, patience, simplicity, honesty, responsibility, strength, and equanimity. So those are 13 fundamental attributes, and 13, the idea is that if you were to focus on one of those each week over the course of a year, you would encounter each of these midot. Midah is singular, midot is plural. You would encounter each one 4 times over the course of a year. And it's a better practice to look at one of these and really focus on it during a whole week, rather than trying to wrap your head around all of these midot at any one time. So let's say gratitude is the one that our text begins with here. There are 3 fundamental practices associated with any one of these midot as we're trying to develop them within ourselves. One is to have a daily phrase. So some phrase that reminds you of the importance of that midah. And some people will put it on a note card next to their bed so that they're looking at it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Some people will put it on their a sticky note on their bathroom mirror so that they'll see it all the time. One of the students in the class had a phrase one time that was sort of directed at her challenges with her husband, and she commented that she didn't want her husband to see the phrase, so she put it on the inside of her medicine cabinet where he would never go, so that she could see it when she opened up her own medicine cabinet. So I had also emailed you a handout on gratitude that looks like this. And at the top, I put a phrase that I love from Rabbi Zelik Pliskin, who's one of the great sources that I enjoy about Musar study. I am a grateful person with a lot to be grateful for. So just very simple to remind ourselves, to see ourselves as who we want to be. I am a grateful person with a lot to be grateful for. And especially at this time when, our lives are so challenged and so limited, I think we are all aware of how much we have to be grateful for, even within the constraints that we are experiencing. So the daily phrase is one important practice. The second, excuse me, I locked my husband out accidentally.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
Let's
Does
take a vote.
anybody
Who
know
buys
what-
that? Who buys that?
I hit the wrong lock on the door, and I do love you, honey.
Good.
I'm glad you're home.
I love you too.
That wasn't 6 feet apart. I'm only kidding.
Rabbi, what page are we on for that list?
Page 8 in the book.
Rabbi, when did you send out that email? Because I don't think we got it.
We didn't get it, either of us.
I didn't get it either.
Okay, well, let me upload it right now. There, you've got it in your chat box now.
Here, but I was not looking at the.
It was probably a few weeks ago already that I sent it.
You can get it. We told you to get it from the rabbi.
Okay, well, you've got it in the chat box now. And I'll share my screen when we get to talking about the handout so that you can follow along, and you've got it in the chat box. And I'm recording this session, so I'll send out the recording when we're done as well. And I'll send it to you so you have it that way as well. So we were talking about Musar practice. One is the phrase. Number two is a Kabbalah, some kind of activity or gesture or something that you're doing to reinforce that quality. So for gratitude, it might be consciously looking for things in your day for which you could be grateful. You know, Jewish tradition suggests that we're supposed to say 100 blessings every day, which sounds like an awful lot. But if you think about the fact that you say a blessing before and after you eat, the Amidah has 19 blessings in it. We do that 3 times a day. Everyone has been talking about the beauty of the natural environment. So there's a prayer that you say when you see something beautiful in nature. We say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shekacha lo ba'olamo. It just means basically, you know, thank you, God, that there are such things in the world. So I think we may be saying blessings, we may not be using the traditional words of the prayer, but I think we are all experiencing that sense of gratitude for the beauty of our environment. And then the third leg of the Musar practice is to keep a journal. And we want to journal both our positive and negative experiences within ourselves as it relates to that midah. So places where we felt gratitude, places where maybe we should have felt more grateful and maybe didn't. We want to remind ourselves of that. And also things that we see in the world in our interactions with others, which may be more limited now, but even in the world that we're in, I could be grateful, for example, to Jane and Richard for sharing the idea of something that they're enjoying to watch, or to Joe and Carol for taking the initiative to bring us all together for a virtual nash. So many opportunities for gratitude. So for any of these midot, you would look at those 3 kind of practices. And then our textbook, as it were, focuses in specifically on gratitude. And it does mention that idea of 100 blessings per day. And so, for example, with food, the authors say, as part of your Musar practice, try to pay special attention to what you are eating, not just what it looks like, but also how it grows, where it came from, who brought it to you, and all the people whose labor made it possible for you to enjoy it. Growers, farm workers, packers, grocery store workers. So if you think about the fact that this book was written before any of us had ever heard of COVID-19, it was published last year, all those people that we used to take for granted in our world, the exact individuals that they're mentioning, the growers, the farm workers, the packers, the grocery store workers, all of a sudden those individuals have now come into much, much greater prominence as objects of our gratitude and appreciation. Let me see if I can find this document. Let's see, how am I gonna pull up the document so that I can show it to you and share it with you?
Should be a share screen function on there.
Yeah, right. So I have it. I have it now on my desktop. Now I have to find all of you again. That's where I seem to lose it. Is if I, here we go. Yeah, I need to figure this out. So now I'm seeing it on my screen, but I lost all of you. Just bear with me here.
Somebody's got to share. No, it's not going to help, Sandy.
Yeah.
Sandy's holding it
Yeah,
up.
we can't read it, but thank you for sharing.
Oh. Did I just end the meeting for all of you? Are you all there?
No,
We're here.
No,
Yeah.
we're good.
We're here.
Frank, you look like a long distance trucker.
Oops.
I'll fix it.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Zoom. Ah, okay.
Here we
Okay,
are.
now we're almost there. Share screen. Ah, hooray! Okay, so this is the document that I just sent you. It's a bunch of teachings on gratitude, and I want to scroll down right away to our authors, Richard Siegel and Rabbi Laura Geller, were talking about food and appreciating the sources of our food. So if you look here, it's on page 4 of my handout. I call this Gratitude and Coffee. This is from a wonderful book by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin called Gateway to Happiness. And it's a fantastic book. He has every category from A to Z, from arrogance to zeal and everything in between, a chapter of little teachings and stories about that particular quality. So I'll read this one that is a Musar exercise. So a friend of mine, Rabbi Label Benjaminson, described a Musar group in which he participated. The members were given an assignment to improve their sense of gratitude. The leader suggested they consider something they usually do or have and think for 10 minutes about its ramifications. My friend drank 1 cup of coffee every morning, and he chose this cup of coffee as his subject. He felt it would be easier to work on the assignment if he wrote his thoughts on paper. To his surprise, the 10 minutes quickly turned into 35. He wrote about the coffee beans, about how the coffee beans grew in Brazil. Someone planted the trees and took care of them until the coffee beans reached maturity. Then workers packed the beans from the trees. The beans were roasted and ground and packed for shipping. He described all the work involved in the shipping industry, which allowed the coffee to reach the United States. This alone required hundreds of people. Finally, the coffee arrived in the port of Haifa, from where it was taken to his grocery store in Jerusalem. He wrote about the gas range that boiled the water and the match he used, how much easier it is to use a match rather than to have to rub 2 sticks together. He wrote about how the gas reached his home and what was necessary to build his stove. He wrote about the water kettle that whistled to let him know that the water had boiled. The milk, he added, required the work of many people from the time it left the cow until it reached his coffee cup. At the end of 35 minutes, he saw that he had not even begun to write about the cup and saucer he used, the teaspoon, the table he placed it on, or the chair he sat on. Wow. For the first time, he became aware of the thousands of people whose work was necessary for him to have that drink of coffee. So I think that's
very interesting.
Just an incredible piece of writing and reflection, and it invites each of us to think about what is something in our environment that maybe we have been taking for granted and that we would like to express gratitude for. Is there something that leaps to mind?
Rabbi, there's a TV show that started in February. It's called What's Eating America, 5-episode series with an award-winning chef and TV personality. And he goes through the way food is grown, the people that pick the food, the people that process the food. It was very interesting. And it's with Andrew Zimmern. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Zimmern. He had a cooking show a TV show for a while, but it was on, I think it might be, I just put it on my cell phone. I know you can't see it, but you might be able to see the 5 episodes because they have the videos of them starting February and it ended a month ago. So it really makes you understand, some industries are seafood in Maryland. They're not growing anymore. The lake got polluted. So it has to do with global warming. It has to do with appreciation every step of the way for the food that we are to eat. So you could look that up. Watch What's Eating America.
Yeah, thanks. So food is something that clearly jumps to mind. Our tradition has always prescribed blessings before we eat, which is a very, very easy way to focus in on gratitude. It takes a matter of seconds. And there are different blessings depending on what you're eating. If you're eating vegetables, if you're eating fruits, if you're eating something that's more of a treat. But for purposes of beginning the practice, hamotzi works fine too. I think we're all familiar with the hamotzi prayer. And so I would encourage you to take that moment. We're going to move on in the book to the concept of mindfulness, and just taking that 15 seconds to say hamotzi before you eat is also a wonderful mindful practice. I don't know about you, but I tend to eat sometimes very unconsciously. And do you ever sit down with a plate of food and you're doing other things while you're eating, and suddenly you look down and the food is gone and you just didn't even have an experience of eating it, and you wonder how could that be? So saying a blessing before we eat is an important way of reminding ourselves to be grateful. And then when we read a piece like this from Rabbi Pliskin, it expands exponentially our sense of gratitude. So let's go back to the beginning here. I couldn't find a source for this. This was one of those memes I just picked up on Facebook, but I really liked it a lot. Lately, I've been replacing my I'm sorry with thank you. Like instead of sorry I'm late, I'll say thanks for waiting for me. Or instead of sorry for being such a mess, I'll say thank you for loving me and caring about me unconditionally. And it's not only shifted the way I think and feel about myself, but also improved my relationships with others who now get to receive my gratitude instead of my negativity. So what are your thoughts about that? Instead of saying I'm sorry, saying thank you as a way of shifting the focus.
I think it's brilliant.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think one of the other things too that I've been very conscious of is substituting and for but in sentences.
Yes. Right. I've heard it said if you say, oh, look at this, my I don't know if you could see the smoke. My yahrzeit candle just went out as we're talking. Yeah, you can see a little bit the smoke coming up. You don't often get to be there right at that moment when the candle goes out. Yeah, I've heard it said, Joe, that when you say but, what you're actually doing is negating everything that came up to that point in whatever you're saying. So and, or even sometimes I'll say yet, if I want to give a different perspective, yet or and yet, just.
Can you give an example?
Sure.
So,
go ahead, Rabbi.
Let's see. I really appreciate your trying to help me fix something on the computer, but it really gets on my nerves when you second guess what I'm doing. So that would be one way to say it. How about, how does it sound if I said, I really appreciate when you try to help me with something on the computer, and yet I'd like to have the opportunity to try to do it myself and to request help if I need it.
Well, as a retired school teacher, I use that in my classroom, because if we present a lesson and one of the kids they were comfortable enough to raise their hand and say, I don't understand, or I don't get it. And we always said they had to follow that by yet, because we could explain it in a different way. I could take a child aside privately and work through it with them. And so putting that yet at the end changes the whole feeling. Like they don't feel stupid anymore. They feel like they may need more practice or little individualized instruction. So that if they said something like that, we'd say, use it in a sentence with the word yet at the end.
Yeah, being a teacher sure calls on that midah of patience. And when we study the midah of patience, there's a Talmudic story about a teacher who is called upon to explain something to a student 100 times. And, you know, how would any of us deal with having to repeat ourselves 100 times with kindness and with understanding and with patience? And yet, that's what we need in order to be successful as teachers. And conversely, in Pirkei Avot, we read that the person who is impatient cannot teach.
So if a child feels like they're confused, or I have a little anecdote. One of my students, her name was Berenice Orozco. We were reading the story of Mulan in 3rd grade. And one of the sentences, you know, they'd say, what does this word mean? And I would have them try to figure it out of context. So in the story, it says, the villages were ravaged and people were famished. And so, you know, we said, what do you think ravaged means? Because there was a picture in the book and it looks like the house was on fire. And so someone would say it was on fire, it was destroyed, good. So when I was trying to elicit a response for famished, I said the fields were burned, there was no food, they were famished. So they understood what it meant, you know, hungry. So little Berenice was in the group, and I said, as my people say, famished. So one day she came up and she didn't understand something. So she said, Mrs. Zolendek, this is confusing. I'm famished. That in an expression, in a sentence.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, one more thing I'd like to add is a long time ago, long time ago, I was in an English class, a creative writing class, and we had a little book that was given to us about that. It was a little teeny book, and I still have it someplace. But the one thing I remember from that class that I've never forgotten is there was a sentence in that book that said, when you write not merely to be understood, write so you cannot be misunderstood. And I think in today's world with emails and texts and whatnot, that's a very good piece of advice for me.
3rd grade, right?
Actually, it was in college.
Oh, okay.
Good. So, yeah, so let's think about that. Next time you're tempted to say, I'm sorry, see if there's a way of rephrasing it as an expression of gratitude. So some questions to think about. Do you tend to focus more on the good that people have done for you or on what they have not done for you?
Good. The good.
Good, yeah. Definitely the good.
Not me.
Yeah?
No,
Yeah.
they don't praise you?
No, not someone to say.
Oh.
Anyone find that they are a little bit more negative? What have you done for me lately?
Not at all.
No.
I try to think how I could be better friend.
Well,
More
that's great.
accepting of you.
So what about number 2, when you are unhappy with someone's behavior, can you still express gratitude for what they've done that's good? Or do you get just consumed by what you're unhappy with?
I know I struggle with that.
I do too.
I'm consumed with what went wrong. I have no idea how to change it into a positive from a negative. I find that very difficult.
Yeah. Debbie, are you aware of that pattern in your life?
Sometimes I had a situation that just last week for Friday night when my mom was going to come over for dinner, and my sister berated my mother to tell her, maybe berate is a strong word, but let her know that she was not to leave Maravilla, and actually called Maravilla to find out what their protocols were. And look, at Lois has been to our house pretty much every Friday night. She came for Seder, and she's walking around with this sense of, we're supposed to be responsible, and I know your house is safe, and blah blah blah. And I get my temperature taken every time I go back. They make me wash my hands and whatever. And when I called my sister to find out, oh no, my sister called me, and she just told me that I wasn't allowed to have Lois at the house. And I said, well, I think we have a difference of opinion. And she honeyed me. Oh, honey this and honey that. And I just went someplace that was, let me not focus on the fact that she was coming from a place of love and concern about my mom, but an attack.
Yeah.
And my mom stayed in the same place too, and said, I can't tell your sisters anything I'm doing anymore. Mm-hmm. And I know that they're in a different scenario in the part of the world, the part of the country where they are, but I stayed hung up on a judgmental place of I was being judged.
Yeah.
And as opposed to her caring. And it all came from a tone. And I've got a family history of things that some of you know about. And so it's easy to just jump back there.
I can understand. That's a really perfect example of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's very understandable that, you felt like you were being second guessed, and that would kind of fill your whole being. I'm not trusted. I'm being second guessed. Mom is being infantilized, all kinds of things. And it would have been a huge challenge in that moment to stay connected to understanding that your sister was coming from love and caring.
I had a similar situation. My daughter found out I played golf, and it was in the beginning of all this. And she found out about it and became absolutely concerned for my safety and begged me and cried and asked me, please don't do that again. And in respect for my daughter's concern for me, I have not played golf since then. Our golf course here does social distance, gives you your own cart. You don't have to ride with anybody else. But at the time I played golf, they weren't doing that. And I did ride with a woman, and she proudly told me she had had a cold for 2 weeks. And I started walking, and I walked almost the entire round.
Wow. So
I have gone along with my daughter because I know how much it meant to her and how scared she was for my safety. And, even though I know I could play golf today and be just fine, but I don't want to hurt her. So that's my take.
I have one kind of like that, but a little different. I just went traveling with a friend of mine for a couple weeks over in Europe. And he wouldn't plan what we did during the day. He wouldn't help plan our meals. He wouldn't, I mean, it went on and on. And so when we came back into the United States, this is kind of telling on me. I had global entry and he didn't. And we only had an hour and a half to make our flight.
You made it.
So I got to my gate, sat down on the plane, and they said 3 minutes till we close the door, and I'm sitting there praying he won't make the flight. Is there a prayer for that, Rabbi? Anyway, fortunately it didn't work. He made the flight, but it has taken me a few weeks to kind of look at that whole trip differently and appreciate the things to do. So
I appreciate your honesty in sharing that. We are all human. We're all works in progress, and that's why, you know, these midot, people who study Musar think, you know, okay, so I'm studying gratitude, and then 2 years later I'm studying gratitude again. Why? Because you know, these are not things that we learn and then we're done with them. They're things that we need to practice and reinforce. So what about receiving compliments? The third question is about receiving compliments. And I think for many people, that's a hard place to just learn to say thank you. I had that experience myself recently. Somebody was trying to say something nice to me about how I'm managing with all of these Zooms and keeping the community together and services and all of that. And I kept coming back like Joel, you know, with the buts and the self-doubt and the self-effacement. And finally he said to me, just take the compliment.
Yeah.
and then I shut up.
Yeah.
So it's.
No, that's a perpetual, lifelong problem of mine.
Yes.
That I'm my worst critic, and I always have felt that, you know, not only do I know myself as far as strengths are concerned, but way more importantly, I know all my weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And for some reason, that always seems to come before the strengths. And so somebody says something that's a compliment, I want to use the word but.
Yes.
You know, is there a but coming? And when there's no but, it's like I'm left like, or do they really know who I am?
Right.
That they've really said something that kind or nice about me. And I have a very difficult time of simply shutting up or simply saying,
oh, I want to show you
thank
something.
you. Was it something I said?
She took the compliment away from you.
No, I wanted to just show and tell. I subscribe to this publication called The Bottom Line Personal. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it.
Yeah.
I just live for every 2 weeks when this thing comes in the mailbox, and then I sit down and I read it cover to cover in one sitting. But there was just an article in the one that just came. Oh, I thought it was in this one about the.
Don't lick your fingers.
Oh, okay. About the imposter syndrome. That's what they call that, Joel. Anyway. Oh yeah, here it is. It's the cover. When you feel you're not good enough, how to overcome imposter syndrome. I'll put it up in the well, no, I won't put it up in the chat box because I'm not messing with my screen. But I'll send you the name and the author when I send out the recording of this. It was very very helpful. Just the headlines there were: reject the voice telling you that you're not qualified. Use evidence to challenge your feelings of fraudulence. Discuss your imposter feelings with trusted friends. Recast your insecurities. stop treating perfection as the goal, and don't attribute your successes to outside forces. So I'm going to put that on my list of things to send you here when we're all done.
I wanted to add something, that if someone pays me a compliment and, you know, makes a big deal about it, I try to put it over on them and say, well, that's so nice of you, and, you know, kind of turn it over to them, that it was nice of them to think of me and say that, well, that was a nice gesture, or, you know what I'm saying.
So I think the takeaway for all of us here is to just learn to be grateful for the compliment and graciously say thank you.
Right.
I really like this too. You know, because when I'm in that moment, and I have a hard time accepting compliments, and I'm thinking about myself, and the way this is presented, this question, it really helps me think about the other person in that perspective, that moment.
It's such a good point,
my
Craig,
head.
because you know, when you don't take the compliment, then you're really invalidating the other person.
Well, what I say to people sometimes is I enjoy doing it. I'll get a lot of compliments for a project I work on at my synagogue, and I'll say, well, I do it because it's something I enjoy.
So what would be different, Mom, if you, instead of saying that, you know, which again is trying to rationalize why you shouldn't be appreciated, if you said, thank you so much.
I do sometimes, but a lot of times I'm embarrassed.
So I think that's exactly what we're addressing, is that sense of embarrassment that is, you're not entitled to the compliment. And I know the project you're talking about, and you work your ass off for months and months and do a lot of good and raise a lot of money. And it's okay to say, thank you, I really appreciate that. So I'm going to remind you of this conversation next January.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to make sure we look through the rest of what's in this handout so you have a chance to see. There's a few more questions there that you can look at. Some quotes from, all right, who's making Yeah, just mute yourself, please, if you're the source of all that noise. Here are some quotes from Pliskin's writings that I really enjoyed. He's got another book that's called Thank You. It's a adorable little book that's all just on the theme of gratitude. I'll send you that that also in our follow-up email. So I love this. Whining prevents gratitude.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
So here's my classic story about how whining prevents gratitude. I had the occasion in 2005 to be in Iraq for Passover, and I made a stop at Abu Ghraib prison to visit with the Jewish service members there and have a Seder experience. And Abu Ghraib in 2005 was an utterly miserable place. They had just had the lid blown off of those photos that were published internationally, so they were the subject of international vilification. It was a muddy place. There was not one blade of grass, not one flower. And in addition to that, they were subject to very regular attacks, such that you couldn't go outside without, you know, your complete battle body armor on. And in addition, by the way, nowhere at Abu Ghraib was there a flush toilet. So if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you had to put on a helmet and a vest and go use a porta-john. It's a pretty miserable place. So I got on a helicopter out of there and flew 20 minutes to the presidential palace. The Allied forces had taken over Saddam, one of Saddam Hussein's palaces, and that was now our headquarters. And so I was going there to bring Passover to those folks. So I walk in, from this muddy, miserable place in Abu Ghraib to literally a palace, marble floors and walls, gold fixtures in the bathrooms, beautiful hand-painted, hand-carved ceilings.
Wow.
And what are the soldiers complaining about? Their feet hurt because there's walking on the marble, there's nothing for the tread on their boots to grip. So their feet were hurting from walking on the marble floors. And that contrast has always stayed with me to, like in the space of 20 minutes to be, in this abject misery. But, people will always find something to complain about. So whining prevents gratitude. Just bear that in mind. You can take a minute here and read this gratitude letter that Pliskin suggests. We looked at gratitude and coffee. And then if you look at the bottom here, gratitude statements. Just many, 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 many different ways that we can express gratitude. I'll just read a few of them. I always remember how you helped me when I needed it. I'm grateful for all the many things you have done for me. I am grateful for your gratitude. That's a good one for you, Mom. I appreciate what you did for me. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'll always remember your kindness. Look, it goes on and on. So you don't have to be at a loss for words when you want to express gratitude. Your kind words help me more than you can imagine. Your kindness means a lot to me. Your tireless work is tremendously appreciated. What you did for me was terrific. Words can't express how grateful I am. So I'm going to conclude by reading this paragraph of Pliskin, which I think is just a beautiful conclusion statement about the profound impact of gratitude in our lives. And then I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we'll take the last couple of minutes if anyone has either a takeaway, something you really want to remember from this conversation, or something that you want to mention that you're feeling grateful for in this moment. So here's what he says. Living with gratitude elevates your entire life. You become a more spiritual person. You become a more joyful person. You become a kinder and more compassionate person. You become a calmer and more peaceful person. You become a person who lives in greater harmony with others. So a lot of wonderful impact from gratitude. So we've got about 10 minutes. If anyone, again, what's something that you heard today that that you want to reinforce, that you want to remember?
Rabbi, I just been listening about gratitude and wondering why it is that so many of us have difficulty expressing that and taking a compliment and feeling good about ourselves. Any thoughts on that?
Well, my mom said she's embarrassed. I think Joel said, he's so aware of his own shortcomings that it's uncomfortable to focus on his positive attributes.
I remember, being told don't have a swell head, so people don't want to, act like they did something that they know was good because it might not go over well with other people. And maybe a third, or maybe it was the way we were raised.
Right. So for every midah, we think about it as a continuum. So if you look at arrogance on one side and humility on the other, we don't want to be so humble that we're doormats and don't stand up for ourselves and are completely self-effacing. On the other hand, we don't want to be so arrogant that we're blind to our own imperfections and opportunities for growth. We want to be somewhere in the middle. And so I think what you're describing, Sandy, is this idea that, you know, we're more on the self-effacing side. It feels awkward and uncomfortable, like to think positive of ourselves. And yet, what the rabbis say is having an appropriate a sense of self-esteem is very important. It's okay to recognize our strengths and gifts. If we're not aware of them, then we're not going to be able to contribute those for the betterment of our world. How can we participate in Tikkun Olam if we're so humble that we have nothing to offer? So having a healthy perspective on our own good is really an important gift that we bring to the community.
I agree. But, you know, I was just wondering, because so many of us seem to have that feeling, and I'm from the generation that was raised that children should be seen and not heard. I see Debbie shaking her head, and probably some others. You know, and we've had a big evolution to the point where women could feel like we could do jobs that men could do, and things like that. So it's been an evolution. You know, being a rabbi, I mean, that's just huge too. So, you know, we're on this continuum, and you know, it's just interesting. I wonder how much of that early childhood kind of comes back to affect how we act.
No doubt, it has a huge impact.
Well, this is Frank, and Diane's here. She just got through with chemo.
Hi, Diane. Great to see you.
Hi. Good to be seen.
And she's very grateful that she's still communicating with everybody. She is so grateful for all the support that she's gotten not only from our friends and neighbors, but the Temple High community. We're just overwhelmed. And we can't thank enough people who have been reaching out to us and worrying about us continuously. It's Dianu.
Wonderful. It really is.
It's so appreciative, and these type of communications really are so much uplifting and makes us feel again that we're still connected with our community. And that's what we're grateful for.
Well, we love you.
Thank you.
We love everyone.
Yep.
I'm so grateful for all the tools and all the people that have helped me, that are helping me to get through this pandemic. They've made it much easier for me than a lot of people. I've been dealing very well with the situation because of the tools and the people that have been so nice. I'm grateful for that.
I'm grateful for Joel and so many others who send these cheerful jokes around or little clips, and you know, kind of brings you up when you get a little bit too into yourself, and I really appreciate that.
I've become the joke broker. Used to be a real estate broker.
No, I don't get them.
I'm, as the rabbi knows from our own Wise Aging, we talked about this about 1.5 years ago. I started a journey maybe 2 years ago involving meditation and mindfulness training. And those exercises from the very beginning highlighted to my dismay that I never used the word grateful or gratitude before. That it was almost a foreign concept to me, or living literally today, right now, what's going on, without dwelling on everything that happened in the past and mistakes and etc., or futurizing as to, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year. And it is still, and this is something I'm practicing fairly regularly, it is still a challenge to bring myself immediately to that. And part of a mantra that I use probably 3 or 4 times a week when I'm meditating literally has to do with hope, happiness, and healing, and gratitude for life, health, love, and Cheryl and Lindy, our daughter. And it helps me capsulize into something that I can remember and bring to the forefront of my mind very quickly. And it's almost likened to a slap across the face sometimes for me to bring me out of whatever negativity or whatever gully I'm in at that.
Well, Joel, that's perfect, because on the next page in the book, page 11, is a 3-page section on mindfulness. So do you have a copy of this book, Joel?
It's literally in the mail. It's being delivered by Amazon today, so no.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to ask you next time we get together if you would kind of plan to take the lead. It's only 3 pages, 11 to 13, on mindfulness. And you know, as somebody who has knowledge and experience in this area, if you can kind of lead us through this discussion.
Okay.
And I'm going to conclude with what the authors write on page 10. Like a muscle, gratitude grows stronger with exercise and practice. Here are the steps for a gratitude workout. Acknowledge what is good in your life. Remember that it is a gift. You didn't do anything to deserve it. Acknowledge where the gift comes from, perhaps a person or perhaps God. Find a way to say thank you. So Debbie was asking about the book. The book is called Getting Good at Getting Older.
Thank you.
And it's by Rabbi Laura Geller and Richard Siegel. And we're just starting this book. We finished, there is a book called Wise Aging from which the name of this group is drawn. We read and discussed that whole book. If you haven't read it, it's terrific. But we're now moving on to Getting Good at Getting Older.
Debbie, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And get it on Kindle too.
Good. So I'm going to stop the recording. I'll send it to you. If nothing else, I will look forward to seeing you on Sunday afternoon at 1 for Finish Strong. We are live streaming services Friday night, and Sunday morning there's Torah study as well. So if you want to join us for Torah study, you're always invited. We do 9 to 9:30 now for kibitzing, and then 9:30 to about 10:20 is the actual Torah study discussion.
Can I say one thing? I just want to say how grateful I am to you, Rabbi, and to all of you for being here and being part of this group. And I'm so glad we have it weekly. It means a lot to me.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, we'll as you know, for the duration of the pandemic confinement quarantine, we'll keep doing it weekly. And just we'll make such faster progress through the book. All right.
Also, just as a reminder, on Sunday night there's a program of singing, you know, which that was kind of buried in the last Ichai, so I've sent it out to a few people. But.
Thanks. I'm sure it'll be highlighted again this week.
What is that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
There's a Zoom singing circle on Sunday night.
Oh. What time?
It's at 7 p.m.
I think it's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock at the temple, and it's excuse me, Andrew Woolman, Alan Naplin, Sharona Feller, I think Lucy Greenbaum, and Josh.
Yeah.
How do we zoom into it?
It's not Zoom, is it? It's not Zoom.
I think it's a Facebook Live.
Right. And YouTube.
Thank you very much.
Good. All right, everybody take good care. Nice to see you.